Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Welcome back to the podcast. Today is long overdue. Roger Wnek out of the Summerville Fire Rescue Department in South Carolina. Roger and I passed cross paths several years ago, and this has been long overdue. This is a guy that is passionate about fire apparatus. He's the apparatus coordinator or maintenance coordinator for Summerville, and we go down a lot of roads through text messages, Roger, where we're talking about trucks and we're talking about what's happening, about the industry, what you're dealing with, the new purchases you guys are doing down in Summerville, and so on. So, brother, long overdue, but welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Jeremy. It's greatly appreciate this.
Yeah, this is cool, man. You know, that's what I get to do. I get to talk with friends. I get to talk with guys that I think bring a lot of value to the service. And for me, it's like I have the best conversations with people, and then I'm like, why am I not sharing this with the world? Because the other guys in this industry would love to hear what we're talking about, because there's some really good stuff, you know?
I'll never forget how we met. Was back in, I think it was 2019 at the FDIC show when we had the Ladder 302 in the show. It was our first tiller.
Yes.
And man, I just was getting things kind of ready and for the show. And this guy comes up and he's all over our rig, like raving about it. And it's like, oh, that's Jeremy from National Fire Radio. And then we just, started exchanging stuff, whatever. And that's how it really all started between me and you.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing, right? It was a standout, right? I think, was that your first TDA?
Yeah, it was.
It was. And this is something I want to talk about, because it seems like down in the Carolinas, there's a cultural shift that's happening. And it has been happening where it comes to designing apparatus more aggressively for the fire ground, more aggressive take on firefighting, if you will. I know that's a very loaded question or loaded statement that a lot of people will take issue with, but it just seems like as time is ticking on, there's been a cultural shift down there. I could be totally wrong, but I'm just saying, from an outsider looking, from the outside in, it just appears that way. And apparatus certainly are at the forefront of that, because you guys are designing apparatus that are definitely geared towards your way of doing things in South Carolina.
Yeah, I've seen a lot more tillers pop up in the Carolinas, especially Georgia's always been a hotbed too. But I think what you're seeing is a lot of your small plazas, your apartment complexes that are going up, tight areas, you need these type of vehicles to maneuver in and out. Plus, they're equipment haulers too. So, say if you don't have a heavy rescue company, you can do both firefighting and a rescue with one of these. It's a nice rolling toolbox.
Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit then. Let's just dive right in. Summerville. I mean, going from the existing department you were to purchasing, designing, and now implementing more than one. I think you have 2 TDAs now on the line.
Yeah, we have 2 TDAs. We had the first one in 2019.
Right.
And basically we need to do another one. We need to do another aerial right after that. And we just made both trucks match, in a sense, theory of them.
Yeah.
When you put both trucks together and you really look into the compartments and how they're laid out, they are different trucks. They even look a little different from the exterior, but they're both similar in operation. And that was another nice feature of interoperability between the companies.
What was the shift to go to a TDA back in 2019 or 2018, 2017 when you were designing it? Like, how did that conversation start, and where did the momentum come from? Because a lot of times people right away are like, we don't need it. And that's even before they understand what it can truly do for you.
There was a lot of that. At that time, I'm just one person as a contributor on our apparatus committees, and our operations chief at the time met with one of the captains, and they all talked about, well, why not a TDA? And then we started going down all the process of that, and how it ended up getting a TDA versus a straight body aerial, and it just worked from there.
What was some of the talking points behind that? What were some of the selling points?
I mean, again, all what I said earlier was just, you're getting maneuverability in some of these strip mall plazas, apartment complexes that are going up all over tighter neighborhoods. Some of the guys even went to go look at some TDAs out in the region, and just started making sense. We started getting going on the build. The crews on that ladder company, one guy's we're going to do everything but firefight. Another crew was like, we're going to do everything but rescue. They kind of did a layout of that first truck, and they did a phenomenal job. I mean, they even took paper drawings, drew everything out where everything needed to be, and everybody had their hands or their part in that truck, and it was really cool. And certain things that we wanted, I think that we look at our trucks, the locker compartment's unique versus a lot of TDAs. And I always was getting hit with
Roger,
that. Like,
sit on your hands, man. You're banging them on the desk, and that's all I hear. So sit on your hands. Go.
so when the locker compartments came into effect, we're just looking to get all the space we needed. We didn't have an EMS cabinet in a cab, so we needed to find room for our charging accessories. At the time, we were thinking we were going to put the Homatro tools in there, and that didn't happen. We put them in the trailer instead. But then up above, we did a storage for like your salvage covers, roof saw, K12 saw, and right underneath there, you got our generator. Plus, in there, you got cord reel, air reels. It worked, and
Yeah.
When you got a piece like this, you just want to try to capture everything, and in the trailer, we needed a lot of room and a lot of space. When we got the truck, and even at FDIC, there was empty compartments because we took the truck to our dealership and had them do all the shelving trays. Being it was our first one, that was a learning process. It was nice to have that allotment to do that. And when we got to the dealership, I think it was a few weeks after the show, got everybody there, tools and equipment was already there. They could fabricate everything, tool boards, shelves,
Right.
trays. It was a big undertaking for them to do. In the past, I would be the one to do that for tools and equipment mounting on the pumpers, but a project like that would have taken me quite a while, and it was
Sure.
nice to have them do that for us.
Yeah. Are you guys seeing growth in your area? Is your fire district growing?
Absolutely, it's the whole region by the day is growing.
Yeah.
I came here in 2007. 2007, and from then we are now up to our sixth fire station. And back in 2007, we opened up our fourth fire station.
Okay. Okay. So you're seeing that explosive growth. And I think that's part of it, too. I think it all goes hand in hand. And I'd love some feedback on this. But my thoughts are, like, I know a lot of guys from up in the Northeast where it's very hard to get a career fire job are moving down into the Carolinas. It's the cost of living is more affordable. It's a little bit easier to find career fire jobs. And so on. And so I think it's a really interesting combination because there is sprawl and growth down there because of that. A lot of people leaving different parts of the country to go there. It's more affordable, which then makes the job busier. And you guys are now scaling your department, and the apparatus have to match the scaling.
Yeah, you're right about that, Jeremy. Just to let you know where my story began.
Yeah.
That's where I was from, Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
And
a little colder up there, brother.
yeah, and you hit the nail on the head with not getting on the job up in the north. I never was able to get on the job at Buffalo Fire.
Yeah.
I tried applying for jobs down toward the south because I knew it wasn't going to happen. My background was I worked for American La France. I worked for them from 2000 till about 2007. At the plant I worked at is now E1 Hamburg, but they were American La France Hamburg, and
Right.
I built the fire truck bodies. So I knew a lot of things, seen a lot of things through the years, even during like the 2004 to 2006 when you had the Homeland Security money, those big heavy rescues that were coming off, and the money was going out there for that stuff. So in about 06, my now wife and then my fiance, we were looking at jobs. She was looking at a teaching job. I was looking at getting to either, if I couldn't get into a professional job, maybe I could do a lateral transfer to the main plant, and they had one here in Summerville. So I did a lateral transfer, moved down. We moved in August of 07, and about that year was interesting because we didn't have a family here. It was just we moved down here first.
Yeah, transplant.
Yeah. The first couple weeks, I noticed they were tapping people on the shoulder and walking people out the door. It was just for no reason at all. And that was scary because we moved our whole life here, and I'm like, am I going to be the next one they're going to tap on the shoulder and walk out the door? And that
This was at La France?
yeah, yeah,
Summerville. Okay.
yeah.
Yep.
And a few months later, during, of course, Christmas time, we're doing furloughs of employees.
Yep.
At that point, then I knew
Writing was on the wall.
Exactly. And I enjoyed what I did, but I also knew I had to do for my family. And I was very fortunate to get on, with Summerville, and I haven't looked back since then. And I got on the job.
Yeah, and at that time, right? I mean, it was a much sleepier of an area, right? I have to think it was.
It was still growing, and but the growth it's exploded. And during the whole housing market crash, there were still some subdivisions that were steadily building. There were, still, of course, bigger plans to keep building, but
sure,
like even the neighborhood just to the right of us at the time, that was still building throughout that. So once that got squared away, then it exploded with growth.
Yeah, well, it shook the market up in the Northeast, and a lot of people were looking for an exit. They were looking for a more affordable place to go, and I think that was a big defining moment of it. And I think after COVID, again, there's another resurgence of people trying to get away from city centers and trying to distance themselves a little bit from the urban environment. And so I'm sure you're seeing that as well. But the uptick, I just know how much, I don't want to say how much easier it is. There's more opportunity down there when it comes to career fire department. And the Northeast is saturated with what it is. The only growth that's happening is when a city puts on a class of, 20 or 30. The only big hiring department around here is New York City, but they're embattled with their lists are always getting thrown out, or the list goes on. And I know where I am in New Jersey, the civil service test, that list could last for 5 to 6 years before they offer it again. And you have to carry residency up here. You can't get hired in a neighboring town if you don't have residency there, and all these different things. So it's just prime for guys up here to head south to find jobs and to follow their passion. But what's exciting about that is a town like Summerville, where you're seeing this excitement and this department that is building themselves to be an aggressive fire department that matches a lot of the roles of how other departments are doing it across the country, and especially that Northeast attitude, right? I freaking love it.
Yeah, and it came down with our leadership. I mean, yeah, it's back when our previous chief Waring, came in about 2011. He really saw the vision and had an end goal, and he got us to where we were today. Brought in an ops chief. We got progressive with things. Again, you see on our engines, low hose beds, pulling hose off the rear. You see 2 TDAs. I mean, now we're up to 6 fire stations. I mean, there was a lot of good things that has happened. Yeah. And even as he's passed it on to our current fire chief, Chief Belcher, they're still continuing that vision because they were part of that. They grew up, they grew within that. And that's even for myself to be asked in my position when Chief Waring asks us, hey, I need help, with, a liaison between the fire department and the maintenance shop. And I said yes, because I had the passion for the other side of the industry still.
You got the background.
Right. And yeah. I really still enjoy it. So I mean, and again, there's also challenges that come, day in and day out. You're not going to get away from that, So,
yeah, I think it's important for leaders to recognize their people and know what their backgrounds are. Right. This is how important this is, because we want to find the right people for the right jobs. If we want to keep progressing and being proactive and move forward, we definitely need the right people in the right positions. And knowing your background, it's an obvious choice. Hey, Roger, would you be interested? This might be right up your alley, right? I mean, it's just great opportunity. And that's how we push forward, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we give our people tools to succeed in their job and help them with, feel that passion.
So as the maintenance coordinator, then give me a little rundown as a department that is growing. Responsibilities, I'm sure, are getting grander and grander. I'm sure you have your hands on a lot of different moving parts. within. And I want to talk about the industry. I want to talk about spare parts and loose equipment and all that
Oh
too.
yeah.
But I want to talk about the job itself, the job function. Do you have other guys within your division, or are you a one-man band? What does this look like?
I have one other guy. He actually has taken on more of the fire station stuff, and he's done a phenomenal job with
So
that.
facilities,
Yeah,
and things like that.
And
Yeah.
we both report to assistant chief, and that's our boss. And I deal more with the vehicles, equipment, and that includes our light duty fleet, heavy duty fleet, making sure we got pump tests done, aerial tests, ground ladders, Hamatro tool, Amkis tool servicing, hose testing, all that gamut.
Yeah.
And right now, I mean,
Do you guys do in-house PMs?
yeah, we have our own city shop that will do that for us.
Okay. So the city, Department of Public Works or somebody like that has a mechanics division?
Yes, sir.
And they do all the PMs, tire
Yes, sir.
repairs, things like that. Okay.
Yes, sir. So on that liaison between them and the fire department, even right now is I'm working on a new light duty vehicle for our special ops chief, and we're kind of working on another heavy duty vehicle, actually two heavy duty vehicles for the current budget year and then the new budget year. So
Nice.
there's always something going on, here, and it's just
Yeah.
full speed, and that's just
Yeah.
our side of things. Now just imagine on the floor with training and all the things that they're doing. I mean, they're just nonstop.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you. I want to dive in though. So how big's the fleet? What do you manage right now? If you break it down, I just want to put it in perspective for people that are listening. I'm envisioning 6 stations, so probably 6 engines, 2 trucks, and give me the rundown.
All right, so we've got 6 engines, 3 reserve engines, 2 tillers, 1 reserve tower, heavy rescue. That's a hazmat unit. That's also light and air truck, and EMS squad truck, battalion chief truck, and then just your admin fleet.
Right.
That's us. It's
That's enough to
It is.
enough to keep you busy
It
for
is.
sure, man.
It is.
What are you looking at? Can you spill these secrets? What you're working on? What are you working on? Are you allowed to talk about it, or you got to take the fifth on this?
I got to take the 5th on
All
that
right.
at the moment, but it's
All
gonna
right.
be pretty special though. I can tell you that. It's
Well, that's cool. I love it. Can you talk about what you're doing for the operations chief? I'm always interested how and you don't have to if you
no,
can't. I get it.
I can talk about that. We're just looking at a
Yeah, because I love how that position has changed as well in the fire service, and typically the vehicle that represents their job is changing. We went from cars to SUVs, and now we're going to typically utility like pickup trucks or work trucks.
Well,
so what are you looking at?
Jeremy. The thing I've learned about no matter what it is you have to learn what their needs are, because not
Yes.
every one thing fits what they want, and it's our special ops chief. He's looking at a pickup truck. He's looking at a 250 or 2500. He wants a deck system with a cargo guide in the back. He wants a winch on the front. And these are things that are important to him for what he envisions, what he's going to run it up into. So
Yeah.
what he needs is going to be different than, say, assistant chief or a battalion chief.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
where you could go with an SUV, or we've even tried the pickup truck concept for the battalion chiefs back, say 2013-ish or so, and
Right.
they liked going down to the SUV. It just was
Okay.
better. So, again, it's not always a one fits one at all. The challenge,
100%.
I will say though, of late, and as I'd say the past 2 years especially, has been what's available. That's been very challenging. We've been very fortunate on some of our light duty vehicle purchases on where we've been getting them. But again, I can tell you there's some other departments, and even ourselves, I'll get into that in a second, is you get what you get. You get the color you get, the options, you get what you get. And it is frustrating, but, again, we're dealing with taxpayer money, so you have to be conscientious of that too.
Oh, 100%.
There's one vehicle we got. It was supposed to be red, and it got pulled right off from us. So we were back, pedaling, wondering well, what other color is going to work for us? And it actually ended up being for our fire marshal, and it was a black Silverado 1500, and actually it looks really sharp. We because I remember the fire marshal. He's like he just threw it out there. He's like, let's how about colored black? And we're all like, okay. And then when he came in, it's like, wow, it's
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, aesthetics is one thing, but I agree with you in knowing a lot of guys that are in the upfitting area, that run companies that do upfitting, build cabinetry, all that stuff. The
and
availability of. Go ahead.
I learned it on that fire marshal truck too that there was a lot of things that he needed specifically that wasn't going to be a typical, okay, we're just going to get you a pickup truck with camper shell and a bed. No, he needs certain specifics for the, because he's not just doing the fire marshal stuff, he's also doing fire investigation
Right.
stuff. So there were certain
Right.
needs that he had to have.
Like shovels, chargers, all that stuff that goes along with his duties. Yeah.
Lockable side compartments,
Yes.
flip door, because if he's got to have evidence back there, I mean,
Yes.
so you got to learn that, and you got to listen to the guys when they're telling you these things when you're putting it together for them.
You make a very good point, and I think that's where when you have a system that works, you have people in positions that want to know what the best way to move forward is. So, hey, what do you need? What are your must-haves? What are your wants? What can you do without? Right?
Yep.
Let's break
Yeah.
this down. Let's figure this out. What does your job require you to carry and do, and so on, and then you can build around that. I think that's a very smart way to go about it, and I think it's the same thing on the larger apparatus too, the heavy apparatus. It's because on a tiller per se, you made a very good point before. Not only is it performing truck operations, shit, you could put a pump on it if you needed to, but you can also turn it into a rescue truck as well. You have the real estate to hold the equipment necessary to do multifunction.
It's not a secret. I mean, you can check out our social media page, and you see the guys out there doing high angle, low angle rope rescue operations, and they're using the ladders, for where your anchor points are and such, and they're training on that. So they're using these things that are being provided. It's just not, well, we're checking the box. No, they're really using it. I mean, just the other day, our ladder 302 is out at Summerville Medical. They had a crane. They worked out with the contractor there for a rescue for that. It was a drill, but they learned how to do that. So I mean, it was just different things. They're thinking outside the box.
Well, I love, and that's where the creativity comes. We need people that are creative, right? We need people that have some vision to say, hey, we could do this with this. Here's an opportunity, right? Sometimes we get stuck with people making decisions that have zero vision, and they're replacing what they had today with, they're replacing what's existing today with the same thing because that's what we had, and not looking at what potential is. Like, I look at it this way, right? With, a lot of departments now carrying ballistic equipment, right? For mass shooter events and things like that. That is something that engine companies, EMS units, they have to take into account. That's heavy, bulky equipment. We need to look forward and say, do we need more storage on the interior? Do we need a compartment that can allow for growth if we have to take on a different task, right? Those are all things that have to go through your head every single day.
Yeah, a few years ago, our ops chief brought that to our attention, and that was something that we needed to do, and we're still, progressing forward on that, and that was a real need. But again, that takes up space. So you got to put it somewhere, and it's not just well, let's just throw it here and just hope it works. It doesn't work like that. I mean, you got to have room for these things, and especially in today's apparatus, you need to build a little bit for growth. And it's always been we'll slam everything into a truck and see if it's going to work, and then the lifetime of you owning a truck is going to change of what you're going to carry. I think, that's just the fire service.
Sure. I mean, you got to build for the future too. And so let me ask you, do you have a process that you instituted or something that you do to help the committee? Obviously, you're not just one man. There's a committee behind all of
absolutely.
this. But is there a process? Like, I know some departments measure out the compartmentation, figure out the best layout, especially going from a straight frame to a bendy frame. right? This was a whole new animal for you, right? So there
it
was a lot,
was
probably a lot of learning in the process.
a lot of learning on that front. A lot of the things that we helped us was once we knew how much transverse space we had on the trailer body, and then what we could do with that.
Yeah.
And then when we got to um, the dealership, and then when they started, putting equipment out and doing that, that was a huge help. Um, then when it came to the second one, it was a little bit easier. We still had to do the same process because we had that built in. And I could tell you that that other truck didn't go the same way as the first truck did. It was totally different crew, totally different committee. They did learn the things from the other ladder companies, so they did take their suggestions, but they also needed to upfit it and lay it out the way that was going to be best for them for their district.
Yeah. Do you carry rescue equipment on the TDAs?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yeah, we carry battery operated Homatro tools on both. Paratech struts, full complement of rope rescue equipment. I mean, it's a rolling toolbox.
Substantial. You still have room, or you maxed out?
Pretty close to being maxed out, to be honest with you. Yeah.
I believe it. I
Yeah.
believe it. I remember
But
seeing the truck, and
but
yeah,
again,
go ahead.
we went from our previous arrows from that. We had a 75-foot E1 stick. We had
Right.
still have it is O2 Suffin tower, and then a O6 E1 tower. So you're trying to get more space and more room, which we did. Then you max it out because you can do all these functions, and especially on the tower ladders. I mean, you're tapped for room. Period. I mean,
Yeah.
when the guys transfer in the Suffin, I mean, it's busting at the seams with equipment because they're trying to keep all this stuff from the mainline truck, and it's almost impossible. But we do the best we can.
Well, of course, right? And that's where it takes some vision too, right? It's like you got to get creative and crafty when you're doing these things. So that's why I was curious if you had any type of plan or way to go about it to determine what goes where and how it all works out. I just recently posted something that was really cool. This department used, instead of, I've seen it with lumber, but they used cardboard. And they made cardboard
Yeah, I saw
compartments that were life size, right?
Yeah.
Like super creative. Doesn't take much, but go to the local, grocery store, get cardboard boxes from them, cut it up to the dimensional values that the compartments are, tape them together, and now you have a life size representation of what your compartments look like. It's a great way to figure out layout.
Jeremy, the guy's done phenomenal between each of the rigs.
Yeah.
They would, like I said, go back to ladder 302, they took out the paper and drew out everything. Even they'll get on the interactive boards and draw things out that way. Do the research on, the tools, the dimensions, and they'll just start pulling out the tape measure. I mean, they're doing this in a firehouse. I mean, that's was really cool, and they're being involved and proactive with, especially when they know that they're getting that new piece and they're being part of it.
There's something about a TDA, Roger. There's just something about it. Like, guys will buy into it, man. It's like, look at this. Look at what they're backing into our firehouse in 6 months. Like, look what's coming. We got to do the work. There's a lot of pride and ownership that goes into something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And again, each one had their niche. I mean, there's even on this last one on Ladder 301 where the guys come up with some of the graphics. I mean, it looked really sharp. I mean, they did some great stuff. And there was there was some give and take too. I mean, there's some things like, hey, let's see what it's going to be, on the dollars wise, and then when it comes back, it's like, well, what is going to be the make or break thing for you,
Yeah.
And that's the reality.
Well, I think that's where a lot of the ownership comes from, is when you let people be a part of the process, right? The guys that are riding this truck every single day, if they have if you give them the opportunity to be a part of the process, there's this buy-in inherently from the get. It's because you are allowing them to be part of the process. And when you do that, you'll get more out of them. And chances are it's going to be a better process, which will result in a better end product because they are a part of it. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, like it says, there's one shift where guys are out constantly. Like, you won't see that ladder truck in the station for hours because they're out there doing it, training in the field, and I've seen it. It's so cool to see that. I mean, even so much as going out and placement of the aerial, where to go out in certain areas of how far they have to stretch and what they can do.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this then. We're talking about apparatus. We're talking about replacements that you've done. You said you're looking at this year's budget, next year's budget for a couple other opportunities that are going to come your way of designing and building additional apparatus coming to the fleet. What are we doing with that? Because right now, as the maintenance coordinator, how are you budgeting and scheduling for apparatus replacement when we're talking 3 and 4 years out on delivery?
We've been very fortunate that we've had great support from our city council. It starts there. If you don't have that, I mean, you can't do nothing. And we've our city council and our public safety, they work hand in hand. They are big supporter of public safety. So that is also a benefit for us. But we've also had, this just didn't happen overnight. This has been almost 10, 12 years worth of getting to where we are today. So that if we look at today, like, I have to look at an upcoming engine to replace, and that's 3 years out. Do I think that the current unit can make it, another 3 years? If we just decided to start this process, hey, we're going to do an apparatus replacement plan today and hope to God it will work. That doesn't work in today's world right now. And it kind of bleeds into another thing I'll talk about in a little bit later is, are we finding these stopgap trucks if my current truck can't make it for that extended period of time? And I'm also seeing that out in the industry as well.
100%. But the problem is those stopgap trucks, they're getting fewer and fewer available because people are gobbling them up.
You're right.
And the tertiary market, the used market, right? The stock market, the stock build market, like those opportunities, they're becoming fewer and fewer because they're being gobbled up because departments can't wait. The way that the deliveries in these builds have gone, people can't wait 28, 30, 36, 40 months for a new apparatus. They just can't wait.
And I wonder if the talks are going to get real with most of the groups is refurbs of what you have, and I don't have that answer. It would be nice, but then at a certain point, you need to know when is the right time to do the refurb, and if you got too far down the road and it's almost too late, and you also don't want to be upside down in a truck down the road when you're like, maybe we shouldn't have done that.
That's it. I mean, refurbishments are not a cheap alternative, depending on how much work has to be done. But a lot of urban centers that are running these trucks 20, 25 runs a day, they take a beating. They need replacement, right? And refurbishment might be a model for a less busier department where you can look at it and say, okay, you know what? It's a secondary apparatus. It's a tanker. It's a rescue. A second out the door rescue. Things like that. We can look at. Go ahead.
I'll tell you one that back in the early 2000s when I was at LaFrance, there was a department, and you may or may not know them. It was Tapan, New York. They had old Mac CFs. But they brought them in and did them for refurbishment. They did a pumper. They took actually a pumper chassis, and we did I think 1 or 2 heavy rescues for them on stainless bodies. I mean, they came out incredible. But that was back then. That they love those Macs. But
and they're probably doing less than 1,000 runs a year though too. That's the thing, right?
Sure. So I mean, I wonder if again, those days are coming back, and then let's go into the workforce on that side of things too. Some of that talent, has since left or, retired. So now, the new ones coming in the manufacturing side, can they even still do that? I mean, I think you're still going to see that on the aerial side of things for sure, but I just don't know.
It's really an interesting time, and I think now more so than ever, where departments and leaders have to find ways to get creative. You have to represent the taxpayers, of course, so you have to find the best cost solution to a problem that you have.
Jeremy,
you hit that
on the head. Is we're here for because the taxpayer lets us be here, and we have to be smart about what they fund us, and that matters. It doesn't matter where you live in the United States. It really does matter.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at like what are opportunities, right? Refurbishment, used apparatus. Even departments are getting creative where they're looking at shared services, which is not a very popular topic with a lot of people. But from the politician's point of view, from City Hall's point of view, if you have a specialized apparatus that we can share, we can split costs, we can share, it's more palatable today than it's ever been. Maybe we don't need a trailer with two U2Vs in it. We can get two utilities in a trailer and share it with two other departments. And now it's a regional, piece of equipment sharing. And that's going to save cost. And it's also going to allow, now we don't have to buy 6 of them with 3 trailers. We have 2 with 1 trailer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And not just that, but you're seeing in certain areas is where they're combining to just survive.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's all over. It doesn't matter if you're a volunteer or even a volunteer combination department. You're seeing a lot of it. Just is because I think in the volunteer world, it's getting harder just to find people to give the same amount of time that you are in the professional side. It's just that's the reality.
Listen, man. That's a whole nother animal, man.
I know.
I can go down that road if you want. But, to staff an engine adequately with the response times that are required unconditionally by the public we serve, a lot of departments are not hitting those benchmarks anymore, especially in the volunteer world. And that's where real conversations really need to start happening. I know where we are, we regionalized unofficially for large occupancy dwellings, right? So if we get any type of alarm in a mid-rise or a senior center or any type of a school or anything like that where you're having a larger population, there's an additional 1-on-1 coming in from 2 separate jurisdictions on those runs, right? So we're doing it already. Right? And then any structural fire, anything of significance, right? Anything out of your everyday that's going to be a little bit more aggressive in resources needed, we're hitting that button quicker. We have automatics built in place now, which years ago we didn't. So we're recognizing that. And I think what we have to do is remain vigilant at staying ahead of that to make sure that we can provide the service that's required to the residents and the people that we serve. But that all comes down to how do we do it when trucks aren't available? How do we do it when we need a new build? And the other thing, too, is like a lot of departments have replacement plans. Like in the volunteer world, it's not uncommon to be 20, 25 years on a replacement schedule for an apparatus. Now these trucks are being pushed out 25, 30, 35. Now are we in regulation anymore? Are we putting, I've seen cities put secondhand used equipment back on the road that are pieces of shit that the guys have to stick their feet out to stop,
Yeah. But at the same shot too is if you have to get into that situation where you have to buy a used piece, that you said it on your podcast is you've got to do the research. You got to dig 100%. In. You don't at the same shot. You don't want to buy a truck where compartments are falling off or it's pretty, slap wore out.
Yeah.
But you're like, is this going to make sense to get us through to a point where it's smart for, our people that are operating day in, day out, and it's, a good, cost savings for our taxpayer to where we can get to, we're waiting on this new build to come in. These are the real situations that you have to make decisions on.
And years ago, though, the used apparatus market was much more affordable than it is today because there's such a demand for these secondary units, these used units. The price tags have gone way up on them. And so now you're looking at purchasing an apparatus that's 20 years old or 15 years old, and you're purchasing for it to be a dependent reserve for your department, for, like, say, a career department. Because the reserve fleet in their backyard, they can't even maintain and fix anymore because the parts aren't available. I've come into that where I'm talking with mechanics and I'm talking with shop guys all over the country. And they're like, it's great. I got 3 engines and a truck out back that are our reserve pieces, but this one's missing this. This one's missing this. This one's missing this. I can't put them out into active service because they're not ready to go either because I can't get the parts for them.
So, Jeremy, I'm glad you talk about that because that was that's been also a challenge for the past few years. Um, and it's you have to you've had to get creative on where to get the parts from, um, and even to finding out, well, who manufactures the part, and go to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you have to do the research, be proactive to help keep your units going, and that's been a challenge. I don't care which manufacturer it is. You have to do that. And it's also working with your dealerships. Building those relationships to where you can get these goals accomplished, and to say, look, I mean, truck's down, I need it up, and it's not. I have a ton of reserves. Especially on the aerial side. I mean, I got one reserve aerial. So
Right.
one of the if I go down two aerials, that's a bad day. That's a real
Yeah,
bad
it
day.
is.
And,
Yes, it
and
is.
it's even on the engine side. I mean, God forbid if you have to replace a radiator. I mean, that was also a very real thing.
Yes,
And then
absolutely.
who's stocking what parts. And even on the other side of the fence is they're trying to stock as much as they can. But let's be honest, what is today's world most likely is we're the Amazon society of we could get it at a split second notice. When the
Sure.
pandemic hit, everything screeched to a halt, and that all changed because we all thought, well, we just get it like that. No, and we're still feeling effects of it now. On that. Yes, have things gotten better with parts in it? For the most part, yes, but there's still some things. I mean, fire apparatus too, they're custom built pieces. They're just not, say, the cookie cutter trucks. Some may be easy to get parts for, but I'll give you a great example. I got a 2012 reserve pumper that I needed an exhaust assembly for, and when I sent the request in for the parts, it says I don't have to weld up or exhaust shop where I could bend the pipe to weld a pipe. I needed how it was with the truck. And when you show the parts, like, it's not in stock because it was a custom made piece. And
Right.
that's the reality.
Right. Years ago, I mean, the truck would have to go out of service for a day or two to get a new radiator put in,
Yeah.
new hose, new belt, right?
Yeah.
New alternator, something like that. So the truck comes off the line, the reserve goes in its place, the truck goes off the line for 24, 48 hours, maybe even 3 days. And then it comes back to the line, it's ready to go. The problem is now is our frontline piece goes out for new alternator, new belts, whatever it is, and all of a sudden it goes to the dealer because maybe our own shop can't do it or whatever, or even our own shop is doing it, but they can't get the parts.
Yeah.
So now that truck goes, what used to be a 24 to 36 hour window or 48-hour window of being down is now down for 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks. And that reserve now has to take the brunt of the first line duty, and that reserve is screaming for help. And so this is that problem where we're constant. It's like running in sand. It's like you're trying to get some momentum here, but as soon as something comes up like that, it sets you way back.
And I'll go on the other back to the other side of the fence of it. I'll just take on the motor side, like your Cummins dealerships, your Detroit dealerships.
Yeah,
they
right.
are slam
100%.
full. And you know what the problem they also have too? We need help. We need help. And trying to find.
I passed the Cummins dealer. There's a Cummins dealer 15 minutes from where I live, right on the highway. I pass by, and I can't even tell you how many New York City apparatus are backed into that lot, and they just sit there. And they're probably on warranty work, and they're sitting there. And you pass by the first week, the second week, they're still sitting there. And then other departments' trucks are still sitting there. And you wonder, like, what the hell's wrong with them that they're sitting there for 3 weeks, 4 weeks? How, and it's that type of mindset. And I know, talking with a lot of guys in your position, Roger, as maintenance coordinators, apparatus coordinators, guys that run the shops, their budgets went sky high because they started buying their own parts to put on their own shelves. They're buying one extra of this, one extra of that, where they would have never done that before. And they only budgeted for that when the repair had to happen. But now they're creating larger stock rooms so that they have availability on stupid parts.
You're absolutely right, Jeremy. We're stocking more parts than we ever have before.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be in that situation of,
that's right,
now I'm waiting months on end.
What do you see? One of the other interesting conversations too. Not that it's any easier per se, but commercial apparatus. You're starting to see more commercial chassis again, especially for those secondary units. Where the manufacturers trying to keep up with deliveries and trying to bring the delivery times down. People are looking towards Kenworth or Freightliner and different commercial apparatus to offset the custom chassis as well.
I see that to a point. I think still customer
Yeah.
specific, but I can tell you that they're also experiencing extreme long lead times
Oh,
on
I know.
that too.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're pinched off in a hard spot.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what do you foresee? And this is just your opinion, because I have mine, and I'd love to share them with you. But I'm curious what you're seeing as the market moves forward. Do you think the apparatus market is doing anything to try to get themselves back online,
I think
or is this going to be the way it is? Like, is this? That's what I'm curious about.
I think it's going to be to a point. I think what is going to happen is you're going to see, I want to say, less true custom units, but I think you're going to see only certain options to that they can get things back to a normal rhythm, because
Yes.
these long lead times, I just don't think it's going to work. It can't. Do I see maybe 2 to 3 year out builds? Yeah, I don't think that's going to go away, but I do see the market eventually going to, guys, this is what we can offer you, and it's what it is, and I think that's going to be everybody across the board.
I have this wild conspiracy theory in my head. I almost feel like this thing was all manufactured. I'm just going to say it. I've never really said this publicly before. I think this whole thing was manufactured in a way just because now we can rein it in. When we go too far out and too far custom, it pushes lead times out and it gets very expensive for the manufacturers. Yes, they bill for it, but the markups there are not what they could be or should be on fully custom. And so what I think is going to happen, this is just my personal opinion, talking to people across the industry and as involved as I am and getting in conversations in groups, I think they're going to bring it back around where standardization is going to be the norm. I think you're going to be able to order a fire truck online. I think you're going to be able to go to a manufacturer and hit drop-down boxes. You want this chassis? Here are your options. On those options, these are your options. On those options, these are your options. And you're going to literally be able to go down the line and build a truck online. Because what we're doing and what I'm seeing daily are departments that are willing to sacrifice things they want for the expeditious nature of getting a quicker delivery back, right? So we can forego, I don't need this, I don't need that, I don't need those. Those are things we wanted. We don't need them if I can get the truck in 24 months instead of 40 months. And I don't want to pay that bill. So I think what's going to happen personally is I think they're going to standardize a lot of the builds and say, if you want a truck within 24 months at a good price tag, you're going to go down this checkbox list, and these are all the options for every option you have. And as long as you stay within those parameters, we can deliver that truck at an affordable cost in the delivery time frame that's acceptable to everybody in the industry. If you deviate or you want anything different, the price is going to go through the roof, and you're going to pay for it, and you're going to wait for it. And I really think, this is my personal opinion, as I think they're trying to rein that in. And I think they're trying to standardize it, because standardization is an easier way and more profitable way for apparatus manufacturers to build trucks, because they can plan and they can put together a build plan and have parts ready to go and items in stock that they can control the supply chain when it's standard. It's as soon as we get outside the standard and we get more and more custom, do the lead times get pushed out and the price tags go up. And I think manufacturers want to pull it all back, and I think they want to standardize a lot of the builds. They'll still have 25% that are willing to wait and spend the money, but that other 75%, I don't know what the number is, 60-40, 50-50, 30-70, I don't know. But I think a lot of more urban settings and more cost-conscious departments, maybe not your, some of these fire districts are willing to pay extra for the frills that they want. And that's just reality in the fire service. But there's also departments that are like, hey, we need an affordable truck that can do this job, and that's all we need. And so we're going to standardize this. And if we can get them quicker at a more affordable rate because we're willing to forego all these wants and we just need the necessities, I think that's where we're going to head.
I agree, but I also disagree, because when you look at on the manufacturing side, they're the ones that are stocking this stuff. and they're not. And because that's costing them money to stock these parts on the shelf to hope that we buy these parts and build this stuff. So they're not going to lose money by just having a stock of this stuff, and then as they're doing their inventory.
But if you only have four options on the build for or two options on the air horn or the trim bands or the material, right? If we can narrow in on the options that are available to us, we know that X percentage of the builds will have this. It's not that they're stocking it, it's that they're planning their inventory around that, and they know what the numbers are. Now with a more custom market, everybody's coming in from left field with all different shit.
I can agree, and to move on another side of this too was just of recent. I've also had to find ways to, even locally, get things accomplished. Using good local fabricators to get things done, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to do what's best for your agency. You have to do what's best for your people you serve. And
relationships, man, they matter.
They sure do, and I've learned that over the years, and I've been very blessed to have networked with some wonderful people.
I think, some of the most important people in my world are like fabricators that I know, that I have a very good relationship with. And every time I go to see them, I bring them a coffee cake, or every time I go, I make sure I buy them lunch or something, because you never know when you need to call upon him. And they're so freaking busy. These fabricators, welders, right? All these guys that do fabrication, all these custom shops. When you need something, man, you're going to have to get in line, and then you pay for it. You know why? Because there's not a lot of great welders out there. There's not a lot of great fabricators, and we need more of that too.
You hit the nail on the head too, is you go to trade schools, trades, and that's a big thing. And that's what I was going back to on the manufacturing side, is a lot of the talent, pre-pandemic or just right pandemic, has either retired or they just left. And that talent is gone, and now you're trying to replenish that. Well, if I don't have trade schools, guys learn these trades. That's also going into this, animal of, why are these long lead times?
That's right.
Well, we just,
that's right.
It's not there, so we got to get creative.
Buddy of mine just had a truck sitting on the line. They did final inspection 4 months ago. It's still at the factory, and it still needs things done to it.
But you're right. It's a different world we live in now.
It sure is. But let's focus on that. Like, let's find ways to combat it. I think, what I think is missing too is the customer approach as well. And I think we need to do better at that. I think that we've become a little complacent and lazy when we can just point the finger and blame supply chain. Like, that drove me nuts. I mean, during COVID, right? I mean, I sold our family business. My family sold the family business right before COVID. Like, timing's everything, right? We sold it before COVID. I don't know if our family business would have survived through COVID, to be honest with you, right? With the way everything was just shut off. But the company that bought us gave us more opportunities because we had different product lines to go sell. But you know what it took? Salesmanship. It took care. I couldn't turn around and tell my customers that we're running 3 shifts, right? They're running manufacturing facilities, production facilities that are running 2nd, 3rd shifts. I can't turn around and tell them, sorry, I can't get you that, supply chain issues. That's not an answer. Like, you can't. Not when you're going to be down tens of thousands of dollars an hour manufacturing. They don't give a shit what the supply chain issue is. Drive there yourself and go get it if you have to. And we have to focus on that. And I think it's easy to always point the finger and blame and say, oh, there's supply chain issues. Oh, there's this. Or, hey, did you find? No, I called 2 places. Well, call 10, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think we have to get to that. And in the fire apparatus world, we got to take care of the customers, man. I mean, I think a lot of manufacturers take for granted that the customers are there and that they have a certain share of the market share, and they're content with that. I'm not a content guy, Roger.
We got to find the solutions,
Yes.
and even as the end user, the customer, working with the manufacturers, like, we'll help you get the solutions, but it's, again, that negotiating, it's the, working to come to a resolution, and that's big, and I remember even a few weeks ago, was talking about, one of the manufacturers is do the homework, sit with them, pick each other's brains. And I think it was the New Jersey pumper. It was the low side compartments that they talked about.
Lakewood?
Yes.
The one that we did,
Yes.
Chief Yard?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. I mean,
Absolutely.
and that's what you have to do. It's just, we just can't assume. We have to work with each other. I do want to talk about, you go back to the used apparatus, and that's another hat I wear. Is I work for a company called Command Fire Apparatus, where we buy and sell used fire apparatus, and you're right, it's a very hot market. Everybody's needs are a little different. Sometimes people buy trucks for, stopgap measures. Sometimes they'll, departments combine and they can't, can't keep the doors open, but they have to sell this piece off to, help out their financial situation. We help out with that. So I've seen that side, and some are even in a situation where I got to replace a really old truck, and we have something. We have a good used piece, that we can send off to them. So.
We had years ago. God, I don't even know. Back when was Katrina? What year was Katrina? Do you know off the top of your head? Hurricane Katrina? Hang on, I want to look it up because I want to put this in perspective here. Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina wiped out, obviously, like New Orleans, Louisiana, that whole area. August of 2005.
Yep.
So as Katrina came through and wiped out the South like that, we had an old Ford Pierce brush truck that we had. And at the time, we were looking to replace it. And so we said, well, why don't we donate it? And so we did. And we titled the truck Brotherhood, like put new decals on it, lettered it for the department, all this. Had it flatbedded down through a nonprofit program. It was awesome, right? And got Fontainebleau, Mississippi, I think it went to, if I remember correctly. And it went down there, and that thing saw a ton of fire duty, and it put out more fires down there in 6 months than it did probably in 20 years with us or whatever it was. But the thing is this, right? It was a brush truck, but they were running it front line. Fast forward to today, I was literally 3 days ago talking to my chief, and he said, you know what I just heard? He said, I heard that truck's still running and still putting out fires down there.
Wow.
And I was like, get out of here. It was like, it's an 80, I think it was like an 82 or something like that. And I mean, the thing was cool. I looked at my chief. I said, we should have never got rid of it, man. That thing was a cream
That
puff,
was like my old department at Doyle Host Company #1 in Cheektowaga, New York.
Cheektowaga.
Yeah.
I know those guys up there. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We had a 99 E1 rescue pumper, and they replaced it. I think it was when you got the new ladder in 2013. And department in South America, they come up, they looked it over, they liked it, and they drove it away down to South America. I follow their Facebook page, and that truck is still kicking and going strong. And that was one of those ones everybody's like, we should never got rid of that truck.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you know what? That's part of what this is all about, too, is paying it forward, giving it, giving it away and letting others enjoy, the good times we had with it as well, right? We have the fortunate abilities to get new apparatus or replace the apparatus here. I don't want to see those things go to a scrapyard. I want them to go somewhere. And it's just like today, like I just heard, like we had replaced our Hearst equipment a while back. And so we have a lot of different Hearst equipment, but a lot of it's low pressure stuff, and they no longer service that.
Yeah.
And so now we have equipment that's less than 10 years old that is literally junk.
Yeah.
Like nobody. So I've got to figure out a way, and hint, hint, wink, wink on National Fire Radio. If there's departments out there that need anything, let me me know, because like this is in our market, right? We can afford the equipment, and so we can do that. And if we can't get the equipment replaced, maybe they just need a simple set of O-rings or a couple wiper seals on a piston or something. Like these guys are probably talented enough to do it themselves and get themselves some reliable equipment. I hate seeing this stuff just go to waste. I really do.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's also, the knowing what the market's driving at too, and cutting stuff loose when you see the next thing coming. And the battery op tools was the big one. And
yeah.
it's unfortunate you're not going to get a lot for it, but it's like if somebody can still use it, by all means, do it.
You know, and we are jaded in a way in the fire service, not understanding that literally a large percentage of the fire service are small towns struggling to get by, and it's neighbors helping neighbors. And you know, where I come from, where you come from, we have municipal fire departments that are well funded. We have the equipment we need. We have the apparatus we need. We always want more staffing, but we're pretty okay. And then there's other departments that literally have a 1956 Dodge engine backed into the local garage downtown, and that's their fire department. And we have to be conscious of that is a big part of Americana. That is what volunteer firefighting is about, and those are the foundational roots. And a lot of towns still have that.
Yeah, there was a town in the middle of New York State, and they're in the valley of the mountains, where they're trying to replace a 30-year-old Mack. And
yeah,
they says they can't buy a used truck because they says that it just doesn't have enough horsepower to go up and down the hills. And I believe it to a point, but they're not wrong. And they're doing GoFundMe's right now for a truck. They just don't have those funds.
Guys that are firemen in departments that don't have to do the fundraising to buy equipment. I mean, think about the dedication that goes into having to run fundraisers to make enough money to buy $1 million piece of equipment to protect their own neighbors. Think about the dedication and passion that has to go into that in order for you to do your job, right? Me, I go, when it's time to go to the firehouse, I go to the firehouse and I jump on a truck that's provided to me, and the firehouse is heated. I don't have to pay the heating bill. We don't have to have fundraisers to put the lights on or insure the vehicles or buy a helmet. Like, I don't have any of those struggles, and I'm fortunate for that. But to be honest with you, perspective, I didn't even think about any of that until I started National Fire Radio, started traveling like I do, and all of a sudden you see what a lot of these fire districts deal with.
Yeah.
And I am like, man, I'm a lucky man for where I'm grown up and where I've been a fireman, because every tool that I need has been given.
It's an eye-opener for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Roger, what's next for you, man? The witching hour is coming, bro. These conversations go fast. What's next for you? What's next for Summerville? I know you said something interesting to me before I hit the record button. Dad Bod Sports. What is that?
Podcast, me and a couple of our buddies who used to work with us, we're kicking it back up again. We did it back, I think, in 2021, and we just talked sports. We talked football, baseball, hockey, basketball. And it was just, we all had our little niches, and we get on each other's nerves, banter back and forth. And
I love that.
So we're kicking it back up probably next month, just for the NFL draft, and it's just chance to get the guys together and just talk sports.
Yes.
To get away from the everyday stuff and just to talk mindless stuff.
Well, I love that, because as soon as I brought it up, you smiled and laughed, and so I can see how important it is to you and the passion that you have for it. But I mean, that is super important, right? Just a little bit of an escape from your everyday. That's awesome, man. So good luck with that. We're plugging it. Dad Bod Sports, check him out. Podcast, it's returning. Roger Wnek, thank you, brother. Thanks for joining me today, man. Like I said, this was long overdue, but it was a fun conversation talking about trucks and about a little bit about you, and I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Anytime, Jeremy. This has been great.
Cool. Roger, if people want to reach out, if they have any questions for you, I know you were talking about used apparatus. You're involved in that. What was the name of that company again that you're working with?
Command Fire Apparatus.
Command? Okay. Awesome. But I know, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you today is because I know how well-versed you are in a lot of these topics. And so I'm sure you would welcome questions or if people had any interest. But where can people find you or reach out to you if they have a question for you?
Find me on Facebook, probably the best way on social media.
Cool.
And I can go from there.
Yeah, cool. Roger, thanks again, man. Appreciate you joining me today. Hang out right here. I'll be right back to you, okay?
Thanks,
Let me just close out. Yeah, man, anytime. Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Roger Wnek out of Summerville, South Carolina. A great conversation. He's the maintenance coordinator for the department. This conversation's been long overdue, not just because of the relationship Roger and I have over these years, but also for maintenance coordinators and how important these guys are. The unsung heroes of the firehouse, if you ask me. These are the guys that get it done for us every single day. They let us run. They get our equipment. maintenance and new purchasing. I mean, it's just the list goes on and on of what they do behind the scenes every single day. So what a fun conversation today. And do me a favor, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we're talking about the job, we'll make the job better. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.